very high tech here. I'm Beth Cox, and I am here to help you build strong and effective glutes. So in my first video of this series, we talked about why sometimes we work so hard to train those glute muscles and they stay weak and ineffective. So today we're going to talk about how can we get those glutes to release for us and open up and lengthen so that we can then train them effectively. So we're going to start with a little bit of a pretest, right? So that means we're going to be doing this again at the end. We want to do a hip hinge. I'm going to take my hands right on the pelvis. So my fingers here are on those ASIS bones, those little knobs in front, and my thumbs reaching around the back. Don't worry if you can't feel that much, that's all right. We want to keep the spine moving as a unit and rotate the pelvis over top of the legs. Take a breath. You want to feel that breath expand through that whole column of ribs and belly if possible. And then stand up. And again, we're rotating. And then coming up. So let's talk about what we're feeling. Ideally, when we're in this hip hinge, we're feeling length happening through the hamstrings and maybe the calves, right? But the spine, nothing's happening in the spine. It's just staying in the same position, moving because it's attached to the pelvis and the pelvis is turning. So if that is indeed what's happening, you will not feel a stretch in your back, right? You won't feel anything in your back at all. So ideally also the weight should stay in the whole foot, right? So I'm gonna say maybe not so much hips back, right? Shouldn't necessarily be able to wiggle those toes in this exercise. We want to be able to keep weight in that whole foot. So I have some weight in my heels and my toes, right? And then the whole thing rotates back up. So let's tighten the glutes for a second and see what happens. So now as I start to try to hinge, I'm moving more from my back, right? But of course I know my hips are supposed to be moving back, right? So I end up bending the knees instead. And this is what a lot of us look like when we've got short and effective glutes, right? So right now my toes are clenching the floor, right? My knees are bending, my back is bending, every muscle is tight, right? Still gonna feel a little bit of that hamstring stretch, but really it's everywhere else, right? It's not getting those glutes to release and lengthen. It's not really stretching the hamstrings. It's more of a battle of those hamstrings trying to hold me up while at the same time I'm hinging, so asking them to straighten. So we're feeling that battle happening back there as opposed to a true release, right? So one easy way to see, well, maybe all I need is a little help, right? I can use a wall or a counter, and I'm just going to put my hands on the wall and try that same hinge. So I'm allowing my elbows to bend and see if we can take weight on the wall to encourage the hamstrings and glutes to say, okay, I guess I don't need to clench right now, right? And then take your breath and then come back up. We'll try that again. So a hinge, breathe into the back, and then come back to standing. So maybe that was enough. Maybe it still feels like it's battling you. So the next tool in our tool belt here is a foam roller. So I've got several release tools here. I've got plenty more in the house. I'm a little bit of an addict. You should just ask my clients. I've got probably, 15 different things, but I brought 3 of them here today. So just a ball, right? This one happens to be a HyperAce product called the Hypersphere. It's the mini, and it's great if you want to really get in deep, right? If you're one of those folks, and it actually vibrates, which is kind of cool too. And then this is your standard foam roller, right? It was the first one, my baby. And it's softer, right? This one happens to be softer. They come in different firmnesses. And then my favorite right now is the roll guy. I love all these little grooves. This one is a hard version, but they make a soft and a standard as well. So we're just gonna sit on top of that roller, right? Could be on that long log. It could be on that ball as well, right? And we're just gonna, if it's the ball, it's just like my roll go, the ball on the end. We're just leaning that into kind of the corner, if you will, of that hip, right in the meat of the muscle. And then while we're there, let's roll a little bit and explore. Just trying to find some spots. What kind of spots? Tender spots. They feel fabulous, right? So find a spot that feels like it could use a little love there. And then we're gonna take that leg on that side and just move it around a little bit, right? Because ideally, we want that leg to be able to move independently of the pelvis. And it's those glutes that are hanging on for dear life right there. And we're trying to get them to release. And it might take a little while, and you can move to another spot along there. Could take up to 90 seconds, but we're just gonna stop there and get the other side. If you feel any kind of like zing, right, any strain that travels down the leg there, that could be a nerve talking to you. So you want to get off of that spot. We do not want to aggravate that piriformis muscle that's tight in there. That can cause the sciatic nerve to flare up. So we're just looking for muscle tightness in those big glute muscles, right? And then again, get that leg to move around when you find that spot. Maybe reach it out and in, rotate it. All right. And then the other tool we have in our toolbox is a stretch, right? So a glute stretch is a great way to release the glute. And the stretches are more effective typically. You know, if we've been overactive, they're more effective after we've foam rolled. So I just cross that ankle over the knee. I'm going to try to keep that pelvis pretty neutral here, so not pushing into the floor there. And then draw it in. Real popular stretch because it feels so good. And then we'll go ahead and get that other side. And again, you could hold that longer. Just kind of enjoy it. Take some nice big breaths. Just trying to feel the expansion, right? Kind of within your rib cage and within your belly. Feel that spine releasing and elongating as you're breathing. All right, so now we get to see if all that hard work paid off. So we're repeating that hip hinge. Remember, I told you it was a pre-test. So here's the post-test. See how we did. Think of keeping your feet centered, right? We're not going to be pushing our weight back into our heels and lifting those toes. Visualize your pelvis rotating and taking your whole spine with it. And then again, take a breath and come up. Again, you could use the wall as your helper. The other trick again was that squeeze and release. So if I'm using the wall, right, come down, maybe I'm not sure, maybe I still feel tight, I can contract and then try to release it and let it go. Lean a little more towards the wall. Squeeze it and release. And just use those arms for assistance. So thank you for joining me for my part 2 of how to build those strong and effective glute muscles. And now we're ready for my next video, so look for that. And we will be talking about the actual exercises, my favorites, but how to take what we've learned from the first two components and use them in those popular glute strengthening exercises so that they're actually effective for us. Thanks for joining me.